On the outer rim of the known galaxy, a small, seemingly insignificant planet drifted quietly among the stars, its blue-green surface unremarkable to the scanners of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Yet beneath its placid oceans and sprawling forests lay a power that no alien could have anticipated. Humanity had long learned to conceal its true capabilities, masking technological leaps behind the illusion of a primitive society while silently observing the galactic stage. And when the first exploratory fleets from the dominant powers of the Orion Council arrived, they found cities filled with ordinary people, scientists running experiments, children playing in sunlit squares, and diplomats offering open, friendly greetings, all of it carefully curated to lower suspicion, while secretly humanity had developed weapon systems capable of reshaping entire planetary systems, energy grids that could absorb and redirect stellar output, and fleets of vessels designed for multi-dimensional maneuvering that no alien species had conceived. And yet the Council dismissed the planet as a backwater outpost, a harmless dot of color in a vast expanse of space, confident that no threat could emerge from such isolation. The first contact team, composed of the Council's finest tacticians and scholars, landed with pomp, expecting ease in negotiations, perhaps some minor trading agreements, and perhaps to catalog the planet's natural resources. But from the moment their boots touched the soil, subtle anomalies began to appear. Power readings that defied known physics, communication networks that seemed to anticipate questions before they were asked, and local defense drones that moved with uncanny precision, always staying just within the periphery of observation, never revealing their full capability, while the humans smiled, offered polite hospitality, and showed the delegation the planet's wonders. From sprawling urban centers powered by clean fusion to research, laboratories studying quantum entanglement and dark matter manipulation, all under the guise of benign curiosity, and the Council members, eager to assert dominance, ignored the warnings that flickered in their instruments and dismissed the unease that crept along their spines as cultural misunderstanding, believing themselves invincible. Beneath the city streets, humanity's true command centers pulsed with activity, monitoring the visitors, analyzing their technology, and preparing contingencies not for negotiation, but for eventual defense against the arrogance that assumed they could survey, catalog, and control a species they had long underestimated. And yet even these preparations were overshadowed by a deeper, older strategy, one that stretched back millennia, encoded in the very DNA and culture of the human race, a strategy of survival, ingenuity, and patience that had allowed humanity to endure countless existential threats, including cosmic catastrophes, pandemics, and internal conflicts, shaping them into a species capable of remarkable unity under pressure. And as the Council's envoys continued their tour, pointing out the planet's natural beauty, marveling at the cities, and congratulating themselves on the ease of their conquest, they failed to notice the subtle signals of readiness, the synchronized movements of autonomous defense systems, the faint energy fluctuations from orbital platforms, the near-invisible fleets waiting just beyond detection. Thresholds, all evidence of a civilization poised on the brink of revealing its true potential. A single misstep, a dismissive remark, a careless action by one of the envoys would be sufficient to trigger a cascade of events that the Council could neither predict nor control. For humanity's strength was not just in technology or numbers, but in adaptability, creativity, and a willingness to act decisively when provoked. And in the weeks that followed, small incidents began to unsettle the delegation. Experimental drones that had been casually observed disappeared and reappeared in impossible configurations. Communication attempts were subtly redirected to convey selective information, and environmental systems were subtly altered, demonstrating control over weather and tectonics with precision that suggested not arrogance but careful observation and warning. And as tension mounted, whispers among the Council began to hint at unease, a creeping suspicion that this planet was not merely a quiet backwater, but a reservoir of power unlike anything they had encountered. And yet they dismissed it still, confident that any real challenge would reveal itself before it could cause harm, unaware that humanity had already accounted for every conceivable scenario, with contingencies layered and overlapping, and that patience itself was a weapon. For the humans understood that the greatest mistake of the arrogant was underestimating the silent, the seemingly weak, and the overlooked. And as the Council prepared to leave, believing their visit a success, sensors aboard their flagship began to register anomalies too vast to ignore, energy signatures enveloping the planet in patterns that suggested preparation, not for war, but for revelation. systems operating at speeds and efficiencies beyond comprehension, and fleets maneuvering in ways that defy conventional physics, all waiting for the precise moment when humanity would no longer remain hidden. And when that moment arrived, the galaxy would witness for the first time a force so calculated, so patient, and so devastating that the consequences of underestimating Earth would ripple across star systems, leaving no doubt that the quiet planet had been hiding a deadly secret all along. The Council departed Earth's orbit with a sense of triumph, unaware that each calculation they had made, every assumption about human simplicity, was already being rewritten by the very civilization they sought to dismiss. And as their ship slipped into faster-than-light travel, the humans who had observed them remained perfectly still, analyzing every maneuver, every communication, and every flaw in their tactics with a patience born of centuries of survival, knowing that real power lay not in haste but in preparation and the meticulous orchestration of strategy. And while the Council celebrated minor victories, humans on the surface and in orbit had quietly begun mobilizing systems designed for rapid deployment across interstellar distances, leveraging technologies that allowed instantaneous resource allocation, adaptive defense grids, and fleets that could phase in and out of conventional space in ways that alien sensors could not yet comprehend, all coordinated by artificial intelligences that had evolved alongside humanity, learning human intuition and judgment, ensuring that no move by the Council could surprise them. And even as the Council's ambassadors discussed trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange in the serene conference halls of their flagship, hidden probes mapped every orbital pathway, every potential line of attack, every weakness in the alien vessels, creating a dynamic model of prediction so precise that human commanders could anticipate movements before they occurred, while the aliens continued to underestimate the quiet planet, interpreting subtle anomalies as technical glitches or minor environmental fluctuations, blind to the reality that humanity's apparent restraint was deliberate, a test of patience and observation. And when the first incident began, minor at first, a survey drone disappearing, a power fluctuation rerouting their energy systems, subtle environmental shifts affecting navigation, the aliens dismissed them as coincidence or minor errors. But each incident was a calculated demonstration, a soft warning of what could happen if the arrogance continued. And behind the scenes, humanity's scientists were not merely observing. They were preparing, enhancing existing systems, deploying quantum-level communications that allowed instantaneous coordination between fleets and planetary defense networks, while engineering teams perfected matter-energy conversion systems capable of creating defensive and offensive structures within hours, all while ensuring that the outer appearances remained mundane and the Council remained unaware, their confidence growing even as they moved closer to the edge of a trap designed to expose every miscalculation they had made. And within human command centers, the leaders debated timing, weighing the consequences of revealing power prematurely against the potential cost of allowing the Council to continue, knowing that patience had always been humanity's greatest ally, that survival had always depended on reading the enemy's hubris and exploiting it with precision. And as days turned into weeks, the aliens unknowingly accelerated the timetable, their assumptions and reckless behaviors providing data that sharpened human models of prediction, making the eventual revelation of their strength not just a display of overwhelming force, but a lesson in strategy, patience, and consequence. And when the moment finally arrived, humans would not merely respond. They would redefine the galaxy's understanding of power, demonstrating that the quiet planet, long dismissed, had been waiting not for an invitation, not for provocation, but for the perfect alignment of opportunity and readiness. And the Council, arrogant and unprepared, will be the first to witness the magnitude of their misjudgment. As humanity's fleets moved with precision, energy systems flared across orbital platforms, and the dormant might of a species underestimated for centuries began to emerge in a sequence so deliberate and devastating that the galaxy itself would shudder, understanding at last that the quiet planet had never been ordinary, and that the humans had harbored with the architects of a new reality, one in which patience, intellect, and unity triumphed over recklessness, arrogance, and underestimation. And as the first visible demonstrations of power cascaded across space, the Council's delegates could only watch, helpless as every assumption they had held, every calculation they had made, collapsed under the weight of humanity's careful, patient, and terrifyingly precise awakening. Say next when you're ready for Part 3. The tension is about to escalate into full-scale revelation. By the time the Council's flagship had reached the outer rim of the system, the first overt signs of humanity's power began to manifest in ways that defied expectation, as orbital platforms aligned with silent precision and activated energy fields that subtly warped space around them, altering the trajectory of surveillance drones and minor vessels alike. While on the surface, entire cities coordinated with unfathomable efficiency, redirecting power from fusion grids to defensive arrays capable of neutralizing weapons before they reached orbit, and yet the humans maintained an outward appearance of calm normality, continuing scientific research, education, and trade with local colonies, a deliberate performance that lured the Council into a false sense of security even as sensors mapped their every move and communication, translating and predicting diplomatic language to anticipate strategies. And in orbit, human fleets phase in and out of detection thresholds, creating an illusion of absence while their ships occupy positions that render the aliens' offensive maneuvers ineffective, and every attempt the Council made to assert control, to conduct reconnaissance, or to pressure humanity through threats was quietly countered by automated systems that rerouted power, diverted sensors, and recalibrated defenses in real time. A ballet of technology and strategy orchestrated by human commanders who understood the alien psyche, their motivations, and their predictable arrogance. And on the planet itself, the civilian population, trained in emergency protocols disguised as routine drills, participated in maneuvers that simulated normal activity while contributing to the coordination of orbital networks and planetary defenses, showing that humanity's true strength lay not only in technology but in collective intelligence, adaptability, and unity of the species. And as the Council began to sense anomalies they could not explain, panic subtly crept into the delegation. Yet pride and denial delayed recognition, and the first real confrontation occurred when a minor patrol vessel approached the planet's surface, attempting to assert authority, and was quietly redirected by gravitational field manipulation, a force invisible, untouchable, and entirely non-lethal, yet sufficient to make the alien crew aware that they were outmatched in ways they could not quantify. And while they scrambled to regain control, orbital human ships emerged from cloaked positions, surrounding the vessel in formations that were both defensive and offensive, demonstrating the capacity for overwhelming force without unnecessary aggression, and simultaneously, humanity's long-range communication arrays broadcast a single message, translated instantaneously into the Council's native languages, concise yet loaded with implication. Humans had observed, humans had calculated, humans had prepared, and the moment of choice now belonged to those who had underestimated them. And within hours, minor skirmishes escalated as Council ships attempted to push boundaries, only to find themselves neutralized by energy fields that absorbed, redirected, and disarmed without a single human casualty. And with each maneuver, the scale of human coordination and technological sophistication became undeniable, a revelation compounded by the simultaneous appearance of human fleets on multiple fronts, demonstrating interstellar mobility, precision timing, and a strategic patience that alien commanders could not hope to match. And as the Council struggled to comprehend the unfolding reality, on Earth, human leaders monitored the situation with calm determination, ready to escalate further if provoked, while sending calculated signals of restraint and measured diplomacy, proving that humanity's power was not chaos or recklessness, but a disciplined, deliberate, and overwhelmingly superior application of intellect, adaptability, and unity. And the lesson was clear. No civilization, however powerful, could underestimate the quiet planet and the species it had nurtured, for every arrogance, every assumption, and every miscalculation by the Council were being systematically dismantled in real time, and the first ripple of what would become a galaxy-wide revelation had begun, setting the stage for humanity to redefine its place in the stars, and for the Council to finally confront the catastrophic error of their long-standing underestimation of a species they had assumed was ordinary, unremarkable, and controllable. As the reality of humanity's hidden power began to sink in, the Council's members grew frantic, their attempt to organize a coherent response collapsing under the weight of unexpected precision, for every move they made was anticipated, counted, or neutralized with quiet efficiency that left no room for improvisation, and the more they tried to assert dominance, the clearer it became that they had been studying the wrong species, misreading intelligence reports, and assuming weakness where there was strategy and humanity ever patient, allowed the Council to strain against invisible boundaries, to make errors that were instantly catalogued and analyzed, while orbital stations hummed with energy, projecting electromagnetic and gravitational manipulations that could dismantle engines, reroute missiles, and isolate vessels without so much as a warning shot, all while maintaining the illusion of normalcy on the surface, where cities remained vibrant and citizens continued daily life, unaware to the casual observer that their routines were synchronized with planetary defenses and fleet maneuvers in ways that could crush any aggression before it manifested. And as the Council convened emergency strategy sessions aboard their flagship, human AI systems had already simulated every plausible countermeasure, providing commanders with real-time predictive models, showing not just how to counter threats, but how to shape the battlefield in ways that leveraged alien psychology, communication protocols, and cultural arrogance against them. And when the first public display occurred, a harmless-looking orbital alignment caused a minor fleet to experience instantaneous sense of blackout, navigational errors, and temporal propulsion failure, an event both awe-inspiring and terrifying to alien observers, demonstrating without question that humans could control space itself with precision and simultaneously. Humans deployed subtle but devastating economic and communication disruptions across the Council's outer colonies, rerouting trade channels, isolating star systems, and manipulating resource flows, all without firing a single conventional weapon, forcing the aliens to realize that power did not lie solely in ships or fleets, but in coordination, foresight, and adaptability, traits humanity had cultivated for millennia, while the Council scrambled to comprehend the scale of the threat, attempting to contact their superiors and allies only to discover that human influence and infiltration extended further than intelligence reports had ever revealed, that every attempt to communicate or strategize had been anticipated and gently guided to prevent any effective response. And as the humans prepared the next stage, fleets emerged from hyperspace of precise coordinates, forming a network of influence and pressure that forced the Council into defensive formations, while planetary systems under human control demonstrated that even environmental manipulation could serve as a strategic tool, shifting weather, gravitational fields, and electromagnetic patterns to make navigation and assault unpredictable and dangerous, and the Council's arrogance began to crumble as individual commanders recognized the truth. They were not facing a species that could be coerced or intimidated, but a civilization that had mastered patience, unity, and foresight to a degree beyond comprehension. And as public broadcasts from human leadership reached the Council's communications networks, not as threats but as statements of undeniable fact, humans had the capability to neutralize entire fleets, manipulate planetary conditions, and coordinate systems across light years. They realized that their previous assumptions about diplomacy, power, and control were irrelevant, that the quiet planet they had dismissed as insignificant was the epicenter of a civilization that could outmaneuver, outthink, and outlast them at every level. And as a Council convened what remained of its emergency leadership, attempting to negotiate or salvage authority, humanity demonstrated one final principle. Restraint was as deliberate as power, that true strength lay not in immediate destruction but in careful, calculated demonstration, forcing the Council to accept that any future misjudgment would not merely be costly, but catastrophic. And in that moment, the galaxy began to understand that underestimation of Earth had been the gravest mistake in its history. For the quiet planet had always been alive with potential, always patient, and now, fully awakened, was ready to assert its rightful place among the stars, reshaping every power dynamic the Council had ever assumed was immutable, and leaving the galaxy to confront the terrifying, undeniable truth. Humanity had never been ordinary, and those who had doubted them would bear the consequences for generations. As humanity's presence and capabilities became undeniable across the sector, the ripple effect began to cascade through the galaxy. Colonies once reliant on the Council's authority started questioning orders. Trading networks faltered as humans selectively redirected energy flows and resources, and fleets scrambled to adjust to environmental manipulations that altered jump coordinates, rendered propulsion systems erratic, and neutralized weapons before deployment, while human fleets, operating with flawless coordination, moved silently through periphery of contested systems, projecting power without overt aggression, and the Council's desperation grew as their own simulations failed to anticipate the adaptability, speed, and foresight with which humans could respond. And on 8th, command centers monitored every reaction, every adjustment, feeding data back into predictive models that continuously evolved, ensuring that humans remained always one step ahead, while publicly maintaining the image of calm civility, offering communications and limited aid to those willing to cooperate, demonstrating restraint that contrasted sharply with the Council's panic-driven movements, and the first independent star systems to openly defy the Council received protective intervention, as human forces neutralized threats, stabilized infrastructures, and offered technological insights that left the local species both awed and fearful, reinforcing humanity's reputation not as conquerors but as an unstoppable force acting with precision, intelligence, and moral clarity. And within Council-controlled territories, misjudgments multiplied as commanders attempted to negotiate or coerce humans without understanding the full scope of capabilities now deployed, only to find their plans anticipated and rendered ineffective by strategic diversions, cloaked patrols, and calculated demonstrations of force, showing that humans had mastered the integration of diplomacy, military, precision, and technological superiority into a single coherent strategy, and as skirmishes erupted in previously ignored sectors, humanity's restraint and patience became part of the psychological warfare, forcing alien leaders to reconsider every action, recalibrate their assumptions, and admit, often too late, that underestimating humans had been catastrophic, while humans, simultaneously, advanced their technological dominance further, revealing quantum communication networks, automated repair and replication systems, and energy platforms capable of stabilizing entire planets or neutralizing aggressive fleets, and each revelation served both as a protective measure and a demonstration of calculated power, teaching the galaxy that humanity's strength was not measured merely in firepower but in foresight, coordination, and the ability to anticipate moves before they happened. And as planetary governors and local leaders witnessed these capabilities firsthand, whispers of rebellion, admiration, and fear spread, destabilizing the Council's influence, while humanity's careful messaging emphasized protection, accountability, and unity, framing their interventions as necessary but fair. And as major Council ships attempted to engage or intimidate, they found themselves isolated, disarmed, or rerouted by the very forces they had dismissed. And even internal factions within the Council began to fracture under pressure, as disagreements over strategy, diplomacy, and survival turned former allies against each other, while humans maintained perfect situational awareness, exploiting every crack in their adversary's cohesion. And through all of this, Earth remained outwardly serene, cities thriving, research advancing, and civilians unaware of the immense orchestration of power around them, yet each citizen contributed unknowingly to humanity's unified defense network, from energy engineers to logistics coordinators, demonstrating that the true advantage of humans lay in unity, intellect, and adaptability. And as the Council's fleets faltered under pressure, attempting desperate maneuvers that only further exposed vulnerabilities, humanity prepared for the next phase, a full demonstration of their ability to reshape the balance of power, not through wanton destruction, but through precision, intelligence, and the unshakable understanding that any species arrogant enough to underestimate Earth would face consequences far beyond what they had imagined. And in that moment, the galaxy began to realize, in terror and awe, that the quiet planet had always been hiding its deadly secret, and that humanity's patient awakening was only the beginning of a new era in which those who underestimated humans would learn that restraint and calculation could be far more devastating than immediate aggression. By the time the Council fully recognized the extent of humanity's capabilities, the galaxy was already shifting under the quiet but unstoppable force of Earth's strategic orchestration, as fleets moved through contested sectors with surgical precision, neutralizing threats, reinforcing allies, and demonstrating control over environments, energy flows, and space itself in ways that left the Council scrambling to comprehend. And while alien leaders debated retreats, counterattacks, and new alliances, humans revealed their mastery of multidimensional tactics, using fleets that could phase, warp, and synchronize across vast distances, rendering conventional strategies obsolete, while planetary systems under human protection experienced stabilization and technological uplift, creating a visible contrast between human-coordinated zones and Council-controlled territories, emphasizing the superiority of foresight, adaptability, and unity. And in every skirmish, humans demonstrated restraint, allowing adversaries to retreat or surrender rather than annihilating them outright, establishing a reputation for strategic morality that confused, frustrated, and awed the Council. And the first public demonstration of raw power occurred when a cluster of hostile ships attempted to block a human convoy, only to be enveloped in a containment field that simultaneously mobilized, neutralized weapons, and rerouted energy systems, leaving the vessels intact but utterly powerless. A controlled display of force that conveyed both capability and warning, while simultaneously, communication channels broadcast translations into the native tongues of every observing species, stating simply but unmistakably that humanity had prepared for centuries, that underestimation had consequences, and that restraint did not equate to weakness. And as the Council attempted to coordinate a counteroffensive, humans revealed the depth of their intelligence networks, exposing infiltration, points, supply vulnerabilities, and command weaknesses, demonstrating the ability to disrupt enemy coordination without a single destructive strike. And with each successive operation, humans expanded their influence subtly but effectively, stabilizing threatened systems, empowering local populations, and neutralizing aggressors through tactical genius rather than brute force, proving that true power lay not in numbers or technology alone, but in the seamless integration of foresight, patience, and strategic patience. And as major Council fleets faltered, miscommunication and hesitation spread like wildfire, factions within their leadership turning on one another, while humans continued to operate with unified clarity, each maneuver calculated to maximize impact, minimize unnecessary destruction, and teach a lesson in both humility and respect. And at the peak of this escalation, humans executed a synchronized demonstration that spanned multiple star systems simultaneously. Orbital defense grids created invisible corridors that redirected hostile ships into containment zones, energy pulses disabled engines without damage, and strategic manipulations of gravity, magnetic fields, and communications rendered coordinated assaults impossible, while humans projected holographic messages across multiple frequencies, emphasizing that aggression toward Earth or its allies would no longer be tolerated, and that the consequences of misjudgment would now unfold fully. And the Council, witnessing firsthand the overwhelming integration of technology, strategy, and foresight, could only acknowledge that every assumption they had held about humanity had been catastrophically wrong, that the quiet planet had harbored not merely hidden potential, but a civilization whose patience, unity, and ingenuity made conventional military, diplomatic, and technological strategies obsolete. And as human fleets maintained readiness while offering channels of dialogue and alliance to those willing to cooperate, the galaxy began to understand that the era of underestimating Earth was over, that humanity's patience had been deliberate, and that the full measure of their power, revealed not as chaos but as disciplined, overwhelming, and morally calculated force, was now the standard by which all civilizations would be measured. And the Council, stripped of pride and certainty, faced the irreversible truth. They had provoked a species whose patience was matched only by its intelligence, and the quiet planet that had once seemed insignificant now stood as the epicenter of a new galactic order, demonstrating that restraint, foresight, and unity were deadlier than any weapon, and those who had ignored the warnings would carry the weight of their misjudgment forever. In the aftermath of humanity's decisive demonstrations, the galaxy began to settle into a new reality, as Council fleets retreated, reorganized, or surrendered, recognizing that the assumptions which had guided their expansion and dominion were obsolete, and human forces, having exercised restraint throughout, now held undeniable authority not through conquest but through unparalleled demonstration of strategy, foresight, and coordination, while planets previously under threat experienced stabilization and technological uplift, with energy grids, transportation networks, and communication systems enhanced in ways that foster security, growth, and autonomy, and humans, ever deliberate, extended offers of alliance and protection to civilizations previously dominated or intimidated by the Council, emphasizing that power could be a shield as well as a weapon, and that cooperation with Earth was preferable to confrontation. And as the Council convened their surviving leadership, stripped of pride and credibility, they faced a reality no intelligence report or simulation had prepared them for. Humanity's patience had been a calculated weapon, the unity a force multiplier, their technological and tactical mastery beyond comprehension, and the quiet planet that had once been dismissed as insignificant now radiated influence across sectors. Its orbit watched with awe and trepidation by every sentient species, while humans maintained an outward appearance of normalcy. Continuing research, education, and cultural life, a subtle yet persistent message that their civilization's power was integrated into every facet of existence, and that vigilance, foresight, and preparation were as natural to humans as breathing, and as former adversaries communicated among themselves, sharing observations and attempting to rebuild fractured alliances, the consensus emerged that Earth's rise was not sudden, nor reckless, but inevitable, a culmination of millennia of adaptability, ingenuity, and patient strategy, and the Council, humbled and wary, recognized that every attempt to dominate or underestimate humans had failed, leaving a clear warning inscribed into galactic memory. No species, no empire, no technological advantage could succeed against a civilization that combined intellect, unity, and patience on a scale unmatched in history. And as human coordinated reconstruction, defense, and interstellar diplomacy simultaneously, they demonstrated that true mastery was not in the obliteration of enemies, but in shaping outcomes with precision, balance, and moral clarity. And across countless star systems, the narrative of Earth shifted from obscurity to legend. Civilizations studying the events, learning from humanity's methods, and acknowledging profound consequences of arrogance and misjudgment, while humanity itself remained vigilant, ever prepared, yet outwardly serene, a living testament that patience, foresight, unity, and the careful orchestration of intellect could surpass raw force. And as the galaxy adjusted to this new paradigm, the quiet planet continued its orbit among the stars, a reminder that underestimation was the gravest mistake any civilization could make, that humanity had always been far more than it appeared, and that the full measure of its strength, strategic, moral, technological, and adaptive, would shape the course of the cosmos for generations to come.